Now pay attention, 007. I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be. I'm Christopher Morales, that one Bond guy. Back with a familiar face. You know him, you love him in the Bond community. He's a dear friend of mine, Fletcher, also known on Instagram as well as one of the leading members in the Great Britain James Bond Club. So how you doing? How you doing, man? Great to see you again.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it was only yesterday
Right?
that that we were on the podcast. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back. I'm always glad to be back onto your podcast show. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm doing great.
So we're talking, obviously, if you guys seen the thumbnail and the title, we're talking about Bond girls, which again, it's not a Bond movie without Bond girls, although we've seen throughout the years and throughout the different Bonds, that term kind of means different things. So I'm excited to kind of pick and choose. What we're gonna do is kind of alternate per each actor. The challenge was only picking two Bond girls out of every single actor's tenure, and it gets tough because there's a lot of great choices. We have no idea what our choices are, so it'll be literally a live reaction between Fletcher and I's choices. So I'll start off with Sean Connery's tenure. I mean, the iconic Sean Connery, the amount of beauty and wonderful story character telling that you get with all the different Bond girls that appear in Sean Connery's tenure. It was so hard to pick because, oh man, you had movies like Thunderball, you had movies like Goldfinger, and just classics that, if you could, you would pick all of them, but you had to pick two. I'm going to start off with Dr. No and the main Bond girl that we know and love, Ursula Andress, the first Bond girl we see in Bond cinematic history, and you can't go wrong with her. She did an absolutely great interpretation of Honey Rider, and from reading the book to comparison to the movie, I mean, she filled the role perfectly, so she had to be my first pick for Sean Connery because you can't go wrong with her. Such an iconic role coming out of the water. I mean, it's even being replicated now by Die Another Day, where we see Halle Berry do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic role and such an iconic moment in cinematic history, really. And then for my second pick, I had to do this because the relation to being an aviator and her role in playing kind of a leader, Honor Blackman, Pussy Galore. I mean, you can't go wrong with her. She is iconic, but also a very strong female role. You could say because she led, of course, the flying circus, which for me is really unique because if you don't know, the planes that they fly in that scene are exactly the same plane that I've done most of my training on as a pilot. So it's kind of cool to
Oh
see
wow.
on screen. Actually gives Bond a run for his money. And is kind of the first Bond girl that really kind of butts heads with him and really kind of just, you know, kind of one tries to one up him a little bit, but she also moves the plot forward by helping him defeat Goldfinger. So for Sean Connery, again, I have to go Ursula Andress and then Honor Blackman. Fletcher,
Yeah.
what are yours? I'm curious to hear about yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are some really great picks. And like you said, there's just so many to choose from. Connery was lucky. Well, I suppose all the Bonds are lucky to have such, female Bond girls as co-stars. So for me, it did take a bit of time because I was going back and forth on a few, but the two that I landed on, like you, Ursula Andress, Honey Rider. What more can be said? Iconic scene, and great dialogue and banter between
Yes.
her and Bond. When she sees Bond and she's like, "Are you looking for shells?" And he's like, "No, I'm just looking."
Yeah.
It's that sort of that sort of thing. And the story that she tells Bond about putting the Black Widow spider,
Yeah.
was it on the landlord, or the guy tried to get frisky with her,
Right.
and Bond's reaction was was so priceless. He was like, yeah, don't make a habit of that. But yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous woman. And like you said, it's been replicated in Die Another Day with Halle Berry, and again, even with Daniel Craig in Casino Royale when he
Right.
comes out of
Yeah.
the water. So yeah, Ursula Andress, yeah, she's like the archetype for, she's like the template for Bond girl. My second pick, and anybody that knows me, they know that this woman is my absolute number one favorite Bond girl of all time. You can just about see her over there.
Yeah.
That's Luciana Paluzzi, Fiona Volpe from Thunderball. I mean, I've got to be careful what I say here because I don't want to get too carried away. But when I saw her in Thunderball, when we first see her when she's with Duval
Duval.
in
Yeah.
the I think they're in the hotel or in his in his room, and she's on the phone, and that fiery red hair was she was the most beautiful one I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And again, with when Connery finds her in his bathtub and then he hands her the sandals, cheeky but smooth. And again, in terms of character, she really, I mean, she was really no nonsense. She gave it to Largo. She chastised Largo for not killing Bond when he had the chance.
Right.
She took a stab at Connery turning pussy galore. I think it was sort of like one of those moments where it's like a nudge and a wink, because we know Bond turned pussy galore, and then she does that little speech about Bond kissing a woman, and then the heavenly choirs open. Yeah, so yeah, Fiona Volpe, beautiful. My second choice and my favorite girl of all time.
And
So,
she's
yeah.
very active within the fan community as well. She goes to events,
Absolutely, yeah.
she's absolutely, from what I've heard, lovely to hang out with and lovely just to chat and tell stories.
Yeah, absolutely. She's actually very good friends with the club president Phil Dewhurst, and yeah, she was supposed to come down to the HMS Belfast, but circumstances dictated that she needed to make it, so that was a shame. But I'm sure we'll see her at future events. But yeah, she's absolutely lovely.
We were talking about experiences with Bond girls, and I have only had one experience with a Bond girl in person. She made her appearance in Diamonds Are Forever. Again, Sean Connery's final film, and she had a very small role. Actually, right here, it was a very great experience because it was in Las Vegas, where she still is from. I'm not sure if it's gonna be kind of blurry to see, but yeah, it's gonna be blurry. So I'll go ahead and post up the same picture up on in the video. But it's her name is Pat Gill. She was the one of the dancers that you see in the casino, and there's not much of a story about her until we got connected with her um, on our Las Vegas experience, and we actually got to go have dinner with her at the Golden Steer,
Okay.
which is a very famous spot where Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, everybody from the golden age of Las Vegas and the Rat Pack, yeah, exactly, went to go eat. However, she never had a chance to because she was always performing right when they got off their performance and went to go eat. So the first time in like 50 years that she has been around the area, first time she went to go there to eat was with us in the Bond group that we were there, which was very cool.
Oh, wow.
Got dressed up in black tie. She absolutely loved it. She shared her story. She brought a vanilla folder this thick of Bond pictures, her contract that she signed in the late
Amazing.
50s, 60s with the Dunes, the casino that she performed at. And one of my favorite stories is there's a picture with her holding a 007 towel next to Sean Connery right after they finished filming Diamonds, or her scene in Diamonds. And she was on set, and they were having a conversation, and she said in front of everybody next to Sean, at least I can tell everyone that I'm the only girl that had you wrapped around me last night or something like that. And everyone stopped what they were doing. They're like, what? And she came back, she went to the back and pulled out the towel and showed everybody. And she was like, and they were like, that's what she meant. Like, and they took that picture and everybody was just laughing and all that. Like it was really cool. Her stories meeting, hanging out with Sean. And I mean, again, she was a pretty prominent dancer from South Africa who made her way dancing, doing what she loved to the United States. That was her goal, was to become a dancer here in the US, and she did it. And she got to hang out with some really, really cool people. She even dated
Yeah, I can imagine.
Elvis Presley for about a couple years, in kind of secret. There's they were caught a few times, and there was an article and stuff that was put out about them. But no, she hung out with the King, and she got to hang out with Sinatra again, the Rat Pack, and was picked by, I believe, Cubby. Went to one of her shows one night when they were doing the filming in Vegas and spotted her out, and he said, I want her to be on the film, in the film. And so it was kind of like an impromptu moment. She got
Yeah.
put on to do that one scene, and really she's just been kind of staying in Vegas ever since. So the chance that we had to meet with her was an unforgettable experience.
So for the Moore era, my two picks are Solitaire.
Mm,
And the reason why I picked Solitaire is I just thought that it was a very unique character in that, you had this, this gorgeous young woman, who was, sort of trapped by this, powerful villain and surrounded by all this voodoo. And again, it's the interactions with Bond. Roger Moore comes swaggering along and then he he manipulates the cards and all of that stuff. And I mean, there were a few confusing things. I need to go back and rewatch the film because there's a scene where um, Bond and Solitaire are heading towards a plane, and then she tries to, lamp him. And
mm, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there's a little bit of a confusing moment there, but you just kind of roll with it. But yeah,
Right.
she's definitely one of my favorites because Live and Let Die was one of those films that I watched a lot
Mm,
growing up. It was probably the first Roger Moore. Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun. Those were the two main films they used to show on TV all the time.
so,
When I was a kid. And so, yeah, Solitaire was always, she always caught my eye.
yeah.
And my second pick is, not too unsurprising for some, but, considering all the Bond girls that Roger Moore had, mine is going to be Naomi.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, Caroline Monroe, who I've met a few times now, lovely, lovely woman. Naomi's character just absolutely gorgeous. Like, Bond said such lovely lines, you know. She was a pilot, except instead of flying planes, she was,
That's right.
flying the helicopter, get to the chopper. And she was just stunning, when she comes off the boat and the robe is flowing and yeah, so yeah, she definitely
It's
made
it's
me hot on the color.
it's funny that your picks are those because they're literally almost the same. I mean, same films, same exact films that I picked. Live and Let Die, and then The Spy Who Loved Me. But again, I have to agree with you. I picked Solitaire as my first pick, and then I actually picked for my second Agent Triple X, Barbara Bach, just because
Yeah,
I love the dialogue between her and Bond, and I think it was really cool to see Bond go kind of buddy buddy for the first time with an agent from the opposition. That was something that was kind of new that they introduced. And then obviously Bond being Bond, he was keeping the British end up for sure towards the end of the
of
film,
course.
which I love that. I love the whole, I mean, The Spy Who Loved Me is probably my favorite Roger Moore film. And it's because of that teamwork aspect of it. And then Solitaire, of course, like the dialogue between her and again trying everything in her power to use her seventh sense, if you will, her power to kind of
abilities.
yeah, to do everything she can to not to tell the future about Bond and how he's not going to win, but yet Bond throws down the lover card, and it's, I mean, obviously we know he had a whole stack of them, but the fact that he kind of one upped her in that scene is just, oh, it's absolutely a classic moment. I love it. Classic Bond moment, classic Roger Moore moment. I mean, man, and it was hard for Roger Moore because he had so many films and so many wonderful Bond girls. Honorable mentions, Maud Adams. I mean, and she's wonderful.
Yes, so with George Lazenby, we all know that he really and truly only had one Bond girl, which was Tracy. Um, so for the sake of picking another, other potential Bond girls that did show up in the film was, of course, in Peace Gloria, where you had, Blofeld's Angels of Death, so to
Right.
speak. And the one I'm going to pick, there's, the actress that played Ruby, there's
Mm,
Joanna Lumley, who's very famous here over in the UK. But I'm going to pick Silvana Enriquez. So she was the Jamaican lady who was eating the
right.
banana, and I'm picking her for the sole reason that I met her um, on the HMS Belfast and again at Comic Con. Such a lovely lady. I mean, she didn't have any speaking lines, I don't believe. Um, but she was just a real presence. I don't know what it is, like all these Bond girls, back then and even now, they still have this aura about them that just really sort of pulls you in. And she was a real delight. So I'm just gonna give her that shout out and yeah, give her flowers. So yeah, I'm
Very
gonna
cool.
pick her as my second as my second
Nice.
favorite Bonga from that film.
I mean, yeah, once a Bond girl, I mean, the term goes, Bond girls are forever, and it's truly, that's a true saying, because once you are a Bond girl, I mean, you will always forever be within cinematic history. Again, I mean, I'm keep using that term cinematic history because it's true. Bond films are part of cinematic history and pop
For
culture.
sure.
And whenever you're in as a Bond girl, you will forever be implanted within that whole 60 plus years of history, which is really cool. So man, I can only imagine they should be called they should be casting you, man, as the next Bond, because with all the Bond girls that you've been able to meet, I'm like, goodness, I'm so jealous. I know we haven't mentioned one of the most iconic, and I think, I mean, again, it's a different tier, I believe, of Bond girl. I think she's more of a main Bond character, and I want to do a shout out to Miss Moneypenny, Lois Maxwell. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
her and Bond, they have that special connection that I think puts her a little bit higher than the Bond girl. But I mean, you cannot talk about Bond women without
Moneypenny.
without Moneypenny.
Yeah, yeah.
Lois Maxwell. I mean, she was amazing. All the Moneypenny roles were really cool. Just a little shout out to her because she is a Bond woman. I want to jump into our friend Timothy Dalton, which I know he only has two films, and surprisingly, the Bond girls that I've picked were only from one film because it's hard. Again, it's hard when you put them back to back, and they have good moments in each film. And I'm again talking about The Living Daylights and License to Kill. But both of my Bond girls are from License to Kill, and I have to,
That's like me.
yeah, there you go. Great
That's like
minds think
me.
alike. I have to say, Carrie Lowell, which she again is Pam Bouvier, which I have the connection to because she's a damn good pilot. Like she says in this in the film. I really like when Bond girls kind of give Bond a run for his money and
Yeah,
kind of challenge him. They don't necessarily let him take the reins all the time. But again, she was part of somebody who was trained similarly to Bond, so she knew what to do. She knew how to take care of herself, which was really cool. More of an accomplice rather than one of the standard Bond girl that just swoons and falls for him. I mean, she actually helped him take down Sanchez and drove the plot of the film, which I absolutely love. However, on the flip side, I think just purely because she's absolutely gorgeous as soon as she walked on screen, I have to go with Talisa Soto. I mean, absolutely gorgeous gal. I mean, she I mean, she had a role in the film. I mean, it wasn't like a huge, like, oh my gosh, but I do appreciate the moments that she interacted with Bond. I felt like, of course, the time that she said, "Oh, Bond, I'm in love with you," like, how she fell in love with Bond. It was a little cheesy and a little, over the top. Definitely didn't feel real, and I couldn't tell really at the beginning if she was doing it just so she could get him close to Sanchez, or if she really did. At one moment, she really did, and then we see at the end of the film that he sets her up with I think the commander or
The mayor,
the
the
mayor,
mayor.
yeah. And then
Yeah,
she switched off really quickly and went for the mayor. So I'm like, okay. But no, I
yeah.
just think she's really gorgeous, and she did for the role that she was casted for. I mean, it was it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Living Daylights, I think, is the superior film.
Right.
Um,
No doubt.
um, and um, Cara, she was a great Bond girl and everything. But I suppose the reason why, like you, I went for Pam and Lupe are for similar reasons. Pam, because she wasn't your typical damsel in distress.
Right.
She was ready to roll up her sleeves
Yeah.
and knock some guys out. But at the same time, she never lost sight of her femininity as well.
Right.
So um, she, there was that element of jealousy when Lupe came on the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and even though she's like operating in a sort of man's world, man's business, she still is very much a woman,
Right.
And I remember that scene where we see her where she's cut her hair or she styles her
Right.
hair
Yeah.
differently. She's got that sort of shorter look. And then when she takes off, the bottom part of her outfit and it's like this short skirt
Mm-hmm.
outfit thing. Yeah, that's when I really sat up and started paying attention,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh.
um, she was great. And
And
in the club, no, the
oh.
bar, sorry, the
Yes.
bar with that
Yeah.
bar fight and shootout. Um, for Lupe, yeah, there are two scenes in particular that helped me with my choice, which is the one that you mentioned about Lupe, Lupe, and I quote, I love James so much.
Yeah.
That is just pure, that's just comedic gold.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, wait, hold on, did I miss something?
Right.
They had like a couple of encounters and it was just sort of like flyby encounters. And this woman is so in love with this guy.
Right.
I know James Bond is the ladies man, but come on.
I mean, yeah, like that was a
He's
little,
good, but he's
that was a
not
little too.
that good.
It was Dalton too, and that's what got me is the fact that it was Dalton. If it was like Sean Connery
Connery.
or Pierce or something, but it was Dalton, who was a bit more of a cold Fleming-esque Bond, and it was a bit awkward for her to say that she was
Yeah.
already ready to marry the guy when she just, again, like you said, had two encounters with his personality, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean that was a really bizarre moment.
Yeah.
But the other scene was and I think this is more of a testament to just how cool Dalton was. So it's that scene where he um infiltrates the boat that she's in,
Oh,
and he's like in a wetsuit and he's
yep.
got the knife and he goes into a room and he puts the knife to her neck and he goes, make a sound and you're dead.
Yeah.
That was just wow.
Yeah.
That's I want to see more of that Bond going forward. I want to see
Yeah. Oh,
Bond
yeah.
the killer,
Right.
but interacting with beautiful, gorgeous, sexy
Right.
ladies.
Right.
So bringing the sex, the danger, the
Mhm.
excitement, the thrills, all of that, and Lupe was in that awesome scene with him. So yeah, that's again, that's one of the reasons why I've chosen her. So Yeah, Pam and Lupe.
Moving to our buddy Pierce Brosnan, which there is a lot of choices,
Yeah.
Some easier pick than others, but you could honestly say that Brosnan's films, when it comes to Bond girls, I mean, it was clear cut to see who was meant to be the Bond girl and who wasn't. There was the Bond girl, and then there was the Bond girl. That makes sense
Yeah.
in a couple of his films. So it was very interesting to differentiate the top two, especially not just one film that I could think of. Now incorporating all of his films, I bet it was a kind of a tedious task to pick the ones that you picked. So I'm curious to hear yours.
Yeah, it was. I think choosing the two Bond girls from the Brosnan era was the hardest out of all the eras for me, because there was just so many to choose from, and there's so many gorgeous women. But when I sort of whittled it down, I had to pretty much do what I did for my choice for with Dalton, which is the two Bond girls that I picked are both in the same movie.
Okay.
And that's Goldeneye. My two favorite Bond girls are Natalia and Onatop. And the reason why I've gone for Natalia is primarily because I don't see much love for her in the community. I think a lot of people see her as plain and not terribly all that interesting. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she does have her legion of fans, but I think she's absolutely gorgeous. That's first and foremost, and two, she was very instrumental in as part of the story. She was a scientist. She she was Bond she was with Bond, sorry, from the very beginning. Once Seven Eye, the satellite station blew up. From there all through to the end, and they worked together, as partners. And then there was that amazing scene. I think they were in Cuba, and they had that moment on the beach where she's sort of chastising him about killing Alec, and then he was saying that I have to be this way because it's what keeps me alive.
That's what keeps you alone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was such a
and
good
then he just shuts her up by kissing her.
Yeah.
And then of course on a top, that was
my goodness.
crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't really think there's much I have to say there, because if you know who On a Top is, you know that it's easy to see why she'd be a candidate, a pick, and this woman was just batshit crazy, so to speak, So, phenomenal actress, Famke Jensen. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe about 2 years ago. This was during the pandemic, where we did a watch along with her, with Famke Jensen and Martin Campbell, where we rewatched GoldenEye online. So that was fun. But just seeing how demented she was, she was a real killer.
She played that role so well, and to the point where even now it feels like it's so over the top. It's so, you could tell not only was she a maniac, but oh my gosh, like she could have been the main villain. I think honestly, like her and Alec together, that was probably some of the, and I really love that, because I think those are the only two like villains that Bond really had to really truly fight, hard to defeat, because I mean, obviously that it's a whole nother story when it comes to villains, but I just love the interaction that Bond had with her. I mean, she was a woman who would always get what she wanted, and Bond is always
squeeze it out of you.
Yeah, right, and yeah, she always did enjoy a good squeeze. But then Bond, especially Pierce's Bond felt like he kind of was the same way. He knew what he wanted, and he could get what he wanted. Those two clashing together, oh man, it was great. I mean, the whole scene when they were in the sauna,
casino.
in the casino.
Oh, the sauna.
Well, the casino, obviously, from that's the iconic scene. The only thing that and I know we could agree on, and I believe she's the only Bond girl that he really has a car chase with, if I'm not, if I'm, I believe. I mean, outside of,
Yes.
so I mean, the only thing I would have changed again, and I know we can agree on this, it's funny because we just talked about this, but is that whole music throughout the whole scene. But other than that, the whole chase scene was fantastic. The interaction between those two, and oh my goodness, um, and I'm only agreeing with you because she was one of my picks too for the
Okay.
Bond girl. So yeah, no, she definitely was fantastic in that role, and she really played it really well and made it believable.
When, your cohort, who's also a villain, is looking at you thinking you're crazy, then you know that her character is like truly
Right.
evil. So yeah, she's definitely up there as a great villain slash henchman, or henchwoman. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I'm very happy with my choice in
Yeah,
On the Top.
great choices. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with on a top. And actually, my second choice, Wei Lin from Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay, all
I
right.
mean, she's just a fantastic actress. Misoyo who just recently got an Oscar, and I
Mhm.
mean, she's has a great, obviously, repertoire and history within the film industry. But her character there, with again, gives Bond a run for his money, but also she's completely badass. She knows how to fight off the baddies with karate. Her room that looks like Cube Ranch with all of the turning walls and with all the weapons and all of that. That was so cool. And just the fact that, again, Bond tries to get with her, but then she kind of knows that there's a greater mission at hand.
Roughs.
It doesn't happen until the very end, you know. I mean,
Mm.
she makes Bond wait till the very end, which is it's kind of cool because she's not your typical Bond girl. She's brutal. She knows how to kill. She knows she's not afraid of again rolling her sleeves up, and again she's just a fantastic character, and the role was fit for her. She was absolutely perfect, and I think her chemistry with Brosnan is fantastic. I mean, it looked like their screen presence together was so natural and so entertaining, and
Yeah.
that is what I love about Waylon and the fact that she's just a strong female character and overall, I mean, she has it all. So Tomorrow
Yeah.
Never Dies is Waylon, and again on a top from GoldenEye were my two choices. So that kind of rounds out Pierce, which means we only have one actor left. Now we're talking about Daniel Craig. So who are the two
Mm.
Bond girls that you have picked for the Daniel Craig 10 year?
So my first Bond girl that I picked from the Craig era, she's actually my second favorite Bond girl of all time,
Oh,
and that is Vesper Lind. Vesper, one of the reasons why I like Vesper so much, before we get into Eva Green's performance,
mhm,
is that um, from the source material, so from the literary pages,
right.
it was established that Vesper was pretty much um, the cause, or she basically is the reason why Bond is the way he is when it
Yep.
comes to his relationships and interactions with women. And so when we obviously the first Bond film was Doctor No, and then from Doctor No onwards, Bond's character is established as a man who is a certain way, who
Mhm,
treats, as Vesper says in Casino Royale, treats women as disposable pleasures rather than meaningful pursuits.
mhm,
And so in my sort of head canon, it's like, okay, um, at some point, Casino Royale happened
mhm,
before Doctor No, like in cinematically,
right.
and Bond came across Vesper. He had his whole issue, and
Mhm,
then that's what's carried on.
right.
So I feel like there's been this sort of specter of Vesper that has sort of been an underlying current from 1962 through all the way to Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Um, But then when we look at Eva Green's performance, I thought she was fantastic. Absolutely stunning actress, very talented actress. And the way, again, when it comes to dialogue, the interactions that she had with Craig was fantastic. The scene on the train, again, where she talks about disposable pleasure, women being disposable pleasures, rather than meaningful pursuits, or shout out to Kyle Barbo, easy smiles and expensive watches, so dialogue like that, and she's quite short with Bond. She doesn't take any nonsense. She just sees him as this reckless guy who's not taking things seriously, and when he and Bond picks up on this very early. During their first meeting. In fact, when she now leaves the train, and he gets up as she leaves, he just basically smiles to himself because he realizes that, okay, this is a woman that's she's on the ball with it. She's very switched on.
She was definitely a woman that was made for Bond and his character, his personality. She was probably the single most only woman that Bond has encountered that really got him. I mean, you could see again the dialogue between them when they were both trying to read each other, or they found out about each other so easy. They were easily able to read each other, and I think that is what made Bond so connected with her, especially psychology, like psychic, like his psyche connected with her so much. So that's why like you said, moving forward, it had to happen before Doctor No, because moving forward, he's a certain type of way. So that mean no doubt that it was because of Vesper, and it's interesting because her character in the book ends up different than what it was in the film. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of I did not see the book ending coming and until obviously reading it, and that actually was a bit entertaining for me to think about how she was a total spy herself the whole time, rather than in the film she kind of just, I mean, she did betray him, but I mean it was kind of she did it because she loved him or she wanted him to live, that whole thing. So definitely, that's a great choice.
Casino Royale is my favorite Bond film. It's just a testament to her character, her acting, and the way she sort of helps carry the movie along. And it's interesting because a lot happens in that movie before she shows up. And then when she does show up, even more craziness happens.
Right.
So and then of course there are so many other iconic moments and scenes that do happen, like in the shower scene after the stairwell fight, and that sort of thing. So I really loved Eva Green's portrayal of Vesper.
Definitely.
So, and then just to sort of round it up here for me talking about Vesper, she is so important, so much so that she, in all 5 films that Craig did, she's either referenced by name or is referenced kind of offhand.
Right.
We look at Quantum of Solace. It opens up with the car chase, and then they're in the safe house, and he takes the picture of Vesper and the boy Yusuf Kibira. And that's all about coping. It was all about coping with the whole Vesper situation. And then with Skyfall, there's a little nod to Vesper where Bond is talking to, and this is a great segue into my second pick, which is Severine.
Nice.
Because Severine is, again, I mean, Eon really do know how to cast Bond girls, and I just wish that we got to see more of Severine. But she was an absolutely, gorgeous woman. and brilliantly acted. That scene in the casino in Macau,
Yeah. Oh,
where
yeah.
you see her hand, actually, I think she's taking the cigarette, and you
Hmm.
see her hand quiver
Hmm.
because she is in fear of her life.
Yeah.
And Bond is again similar to what he did with Vesper, reading her, and then he drops that line where it's like he knows when a woman is afraid and pretending not to be.
Right.
So excuse me. That was a great callback to the impact Vesper has had on Craig's Bond. But yeah, Severine was, she was a really great character. I feel like her backstory was enough to sort of elevate her as somebody worth picking as, someone who I can say, oh, is a Bond girl,
Yes.
rather than just being, a superfluous character.
Right.
So yeah, she's Severin is my second favorite.
The Vesper's my Bond girl for my first pick, and the second one, just because she had 3 weeks of training and she absolutely killed it, is Ana de Armas. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
complete badass of a character, and like she had barely any time to get ready, and she was handpicked by Daniel Craig for that role.
mm,
I couldn't have picked a better person, especially as she was getting the height of her fame with Knives Out and everything. I mean, it was a perfect chance to showcase her skills, and now she's forever a part of the Bond franchise. And I mean, oh, I can go on
yeah,
forever about how gorgeous she is, but as an actress too, she's definitely making her mark, and definitely worth mentioning. And one of my favorites, character wise, I mean, it made No Time to Die more palatable, I will say, with her character in it. Without her character in it,
yeah,
I think it would have been a bit more bland, but with her character inserted in, and it was a last minute decision too, which is the crazy thing. But her
yeah,
character added a lot of flavor within the film, and I think it made it for a much more entertaining ride. And I loved the way that she was so giddy and ready to go into
yeah.
action with Bond. I love the scene where they were in the wine cellar where he thought, maybe we should
They were
get to
going to
know
get
each
down
other.
and dirty.
Yeah, but no, she's just it's just the childness of her a little bit, like the naiveness, the new fresh agent. She's just so excited to get the mission going, and she couldn't. It was like her first big job, and it was kind of cool to
Yeah,
see Bond, who was obviously retired and coming back, he's a veteran, um, with this new agent and her interaction with Bond. I mean, it was great. It was perfect, and I think it was a lot of fun, that Cuban fight scene, and it was so much fun, and that's why Vesperlin and Paloma are my two Bond girls from
yeah,
the Daniel Craig era. So that being said, we kind of rounded up the whole Bond franchise, 60 plus years of Bond girls discussing, and I thought your picks were fantastic. It was
same.
definitely a difficult task, would you say, to go
Yeah,
through and pick the Bond?
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, it's almost unfair to only sort of pick two. I mean, if we had, more time, like for a
Mhm,
proper sort of deep dive,
mhm.
I would probably, do like maybe a top three or
Yeah.
something, or
But see,
top
that was
four
the
from each
challenging
era.
part. The challenging part
Yeah,
was to do the two, and that was kind of fun because you really had to think about, okay, if I had to live without one, who would I pick? And there we go. But no,
yeah.
as always, thank you so much for joining me and talking about this. This was so much fun. This was great.
No, thanks for inviting me back because I have a great time being on this podcast, and it's always good to be welcomed back. So yeah, man, I have a great time being on here. So it was great fun.
Well, this is nothing but fun and pleasure for me. So, I mean, anytime, I mean, anything Bond, anything, I'd love any topics, I'd love to chat. And I know you're definitely somebody in the community who has a huge knowledge, of course, being part of a main pivotal part of the new Great Britain James Bond Club. And it's super exciting to see where you guys are going with that as always. And rooting for you guys all the way over here in California, keeping the British end up over here. So again, as always, Fletcher's information will be in the description. So make sure you give him a follow and some love, and check out the website. I will put the club's website also in the description below, so be sure to check it out. It's a really cool website. You'll see the pictures and how to get involved, how to become a member, which they've done a fantastic job. It's been so much fun talking about Bond girls, because as always, Bond girls are forever a pivotal part of the Bond franchise, and it wouldn't be a Bond movie. It wouldn't be Bond without the Bond girls, and
Exactly.
owe them so much more for everything that they provided us for the 60+ years of James Bond. I mean, not just the films, but the literary parts as well. They drive everything. So thank you for watching. Everyone take care. Fletcher, again, thank you for joining me, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon in the near future. Everybody take care.
Sure.
Be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.